In the early 1950s, in a small Hispanic community residing in Pecos, Texas, there was an insane asylum. The man who founded the asylum was a Portuguese businessman, Afonso Santos, dubbed by the locals as Homem Insano, or translated, the insane man. Although Afonso had never been diagnosed as clinically insane, he was still considered so, and was estranged by the community. His name Homem Insano came only from his Portuguese origins, as almost the entire population of Pecos were Spanish-speaking. Black cars with shaded windows could be seen riding up to the asylum, down the main street, then to the right down a gravel road. Out of these cars came the patients of the insane asylum, frail and sallow, looking as though they were beaten before they arrived. They were then escorted into the asylum, never to be seen again. Youths and delinquents, looking for a place to hang out, spray paint, and smoke, often hid at the back of the asylum, where there were only a couple of windows looking inside of it. The youths usually ignored anything that they could see, peering through the windows. All they ever saw was an occasional patient walking down the hall in which those windows led, slowly mumbling to themselves. The youths thought the patients were strange, but mostly didn't care. They didn't care until what they saw started to disturb them. A local teenager, Jorge, reported to the local newspaper, the Pecos Batch, roughly translated, that he saw a hideous face looking through that window. The person said to me, "Let me free. Break my chains. Release me from hell." The man said this over and over, until a guard came to get him. I don't know what, but something is happening in that asylum, the Insano Asylum. After the news clipping went viral in the small community, the locals started to investigate what they now called the Insano Asylum. What the investigations found was shocking. Afonso, the owner of the asylum, had tortured and abused his patients. The guards working at the asylum could be split into two separate groups, ones which sympathized with the patients, abstaining from the harmful inflictions upon them, and a group which enjoyed it. The main experiment that was occurring at the asylum was a series of tests on the effects of shock therapy. The voltages used during these tests ranged from 10 volts, up to 600 volts. Some of the guards would also beat the patients, seeing it as a sport of some kind, testing their ability to hurt another human as much as possible without being caught. In total 40 patients died at Insano Asylum. An old patient of the asylum agreed to be interviewed. This is the transcription of that interview. What were the living conditions like in the asylum? Miserable. We were treated like dogs. The food we were given was pitiful, often with tracings and marks of fecal matter and insects. We were regularly beaten by the guards, and when we weren't, we were in the shock chamber. And how long were you in the asylum? I was there for 2 years. After an epileptic episode, my family, which was Catholic, sent me to the asylum. I now know that they didn't understand what my condition was, nor how poor the treatment in the asylum was. Every time visitation came around, they would clean up the building and start feeding us better food, so we were not sick. Unfortunately, visitations were not common. After visitation day, the conditions of the building would return to its original filth, and our food would once again become stale and rotten. So, you mentioned a shock room? What was it like in the shock room? I understand if that is a difficult question to ans dash. Get out of my house. Leave. I will not return to the shock room. I will not return that hell. Alright, I under dash. Get out. That is the end of the transcription. The patient that was interviewed is now dead. It was reported that before he died his last words were, "I know I will return to that hell. The electric hell." As for Afonso Santos, he fled the state of New Mexico after his scandal was revealed. It is believed by Pecos locals that he fled south into Mexico, and later Latin America, where his cruel experiments continued. The legend of Insano Asylum haunts the community to this day.